Hello, NFL fans, Falcons fans. It's great to be with you on another Saturday on Jackson Pigskins. This is Tom Pollen. Uh, again, driving the car myself today, so we'll see if we can't keep it on the straight and narrow. We're going to be looking at a couple of things this week one thing that made news this week, which is the documentary on Netflix, Quarterback, dropped, I think, last Wednesday. And Marcus Mariota, we finally got to hear a little bit of behind the scenes on Marcus Mariota. And he said some things. Arthur Smith had some things to say. And overall, from some of the research I've done this week, I'm calling BS on what Marcus had to say. It doesn't hold water. All right. That's just the way, and I will tell you why in a little bit. And I know we've talked about Marcus Mariota quite a bit over the past past few months, ever since he walked away from the team. Well, I still say he walked away from the team. And again, I'll tell you why. And hopefully this is the last time we mention Marcus Mariota on this show, because I've basically had my fill of the guy. But I do want to kind of dive into what he had to say, because it doesn't make sense. And after that, we'll get into a bit more of our NFC South breakdown. The Falcons against the NFC South, how everybody's looking on defense. What did they do last year? And what did they do to fix some of those problems from last year? And what can we expect this season out of the NFC South on defense? So before we get into all this, I want to take a little time to go into the show's sponsor, Prize Picks. They will match up to $100 of your first deposit. So $100 of free and clear money to place down on player props. And they have NFL season player props so far. In my opinion, have been early, because you never know what's going to happen in training camp. You put down a player prop in training camp and somebody gets injured, and that's pretty much it as far as what you're able to do. However, this week's NFL player prop for the Falcons, we still have Desmond Ridder. Passing yards, 2,575 and a half passing yards. So if you want to get in on that, sign up for Prize Picks. Use the promo code ASU for Atlanta Sports Unlimited, and go ahead and take a look at all the different categories that they have to offer for player props. It's amazing. They have Desmond Ridder is the only quarterback below 3,000 yards for the season. Bryce Young, they have 3,475 and a half yards. CJ Stroud with the Texans, 3,399 and a half yards. So, I'm sorry. They do. Anthony Richardson's below, 2,599 and a half. So, okay. Desmond Ridder isn't 575. Okay, they even have Desmond Ridder below Anthony Richardson. So if I'm going to start calling BS on stuff on today's show, we'll start there, because Desmond Ridder is going to outpass is going to outpass Anthony Richardson this season. So, but again, Prize Picks, they will match up to $100 of your first deposit, and use the promo code ASU. And they will know where you heard of Prize Picks, and it will help support the show. All right, let's go into today's show. First, again, talking about Marcus Mariota and some quotes that have come out that are all over the web. Excuse me. And based on, some of the things that he said and some of the things that they kind of cut to Arthur Smith to get comments. Marcus Mariota, as far as now, says that in a matter of trying to set the record straight. So ultimately, it's a long story, really. So during the bye week, my daughter was born. When she was born, Art brought me in the following day. It was like talking about the future and kind of what he wanted to do. And they told me that they were going to play Dez for the last 4 games, which, again, we talked about last season and we've been talking about in the offseason, should have happened a lot before the bye week. Ritter should have been starting before week 15. So initially he had said at this point in time in the year, the playoffs are a long shot, and we just kind of want to see what Dez can do. Now, in a separate segment, Arthur Smith says that revealed that he and Mariota never talked about the quarterback getting any type of knee procedure done. He says when he and I had that conversation, that's not what we talked about as far as Mariota going for the knee procedure. He goes, those are private conversations, but it was more about where we were as a team and as a player and what the future might hold. Now, I have a problem with that statement to begin with because these weren't supposed to be private conversations. NFL Films, Omaha Productions were supposed to have unlimited access to players, to these 3 quarterbacks going through the season. And that conversation should have been recorded. And it wasn't. And I don't know why, but I think we got sold a little bit of a bill of goods because, as I say, some of this was supposed to be recorded and it wasn't. However, we do have Arthur Smith saying, but talk was more about where we were as a team and as a player and what the future might hold. That matches what Mariota said. However, Mariota did say, again, I don't know why it had to be that narrative, that quitting on his team. I gave everything I had for this team. I thought I was making a good decision for everybody. Ultimately, we decided that getting my knee fixed was in the best interest. I came home, got my knee fixed, and have been in Vegas. All right, that's where the stories separate because Arthur Smith did come out and say he and Mariota never talked about the quarterback getting any type of knee procedure done when they discussed Mariota's benching. Who's telling the truth here? Because, somebody is bending the truth a little bit, if at the very least. But let's look at what's going on with this. We got 2 different versions of what actually happened. Now, Mariota describes the injury, says your meniscus kind of goes around your knee, and mine basically had torn. It was like flapped out. Now, that is a possibility. That's one of the ways a meniscus can be injured, is it kind of flaps out from the knee and makes it hurts knee stability. It hurts during the season if you're on the field playing. So meniscus, if it is injured, is going to tell you that it's injured. One of the problems is Mariota never showed up on the team's injury report at any time during the season. And with a either a partially torn meniscus, a minor meniscus tear at the very least. He needs to show up on the injured report. Why did the Falcons physicians never come out and say that Mariota was playing with a knee? Basically, it causes instability in the knee. It's an important thing that has to come out on the injury report. So, and unless it's a very minor meniscus problem, you wouldn't call it chronic. You can't call it chronic, especially the way Mariota says it was torn. All right, this is not a chronic meniscus. This is the type of injury where they have to go in arthroscopically and do a fix. And him out 4 weeks. Now, he was out 4 weeks, but again, he would have had trouble during the season. He would have had trouble playing because with the Jamal, morning. Good morning. Great to see you. But going into this, never limped. And if you have a meniscus tear, especially the way Mariota says you have a meniscus tear, you're going to limp because you have you've lost stability in your knee. Jamal D, I'm only on episode 3 of Quarterback, but I know Mark is capping already. Jamal, you know it. So never limped, which, as I say, a meniscus tear of the severity that Mariota describes it, it's going to do. I have a jointsurgeon.com says that the meniscus basically, its physical properties enable them to function as shock absorbers in each knee between weight-bearing surfaces of knee and distribute forces from the femur more evenly across the tibia. The role of the meniscus is so important as without this distribution of weight, the knee joint would be exposed to loads of up to 6 times greater than if the meniscus was healthy. It has nothing to do with chronic. All right. This is something that the Falcons would have addressed right at the time. Now, as I say, you can play with a small meniscus here. You know it's there. You can play with it and get it fixed after the season. There is that option. It does not take long to get fixed. Doesn't mean he had to leave the team to get it fixed. He could have had that done the minute the season was over. He had it fixed and been ready to sign as a free agent. All right. Only a 4-week recovery. I remember back when Walter Payton, about the mid-late stages of his career, went in after the season 1 year and had the meniscus had his meniscus shaved and straightened out, called it his 10,000-yard checkup. So, but that was not a serious meniscus tear. And I'm going to take a break here to say, Wallace Smith, what's going on with you, Mr. Tom? I'm doing great. Talking football with all my friends. I feel like you're my friends. You're here with me on a Saturday. And you spend time here with me on a Saturday. And I do appreciate that. So I hope things are going well with you too, Wallace. Great to see you on the show today. So we've seen how important this meniscus is, especially when it's torn. It's not a chronic problem when it's torn, when it's flapping. And Mariota said it was flapping. One of the problems you have here is that not reporting an injury in the NFL He was not on the injury report at any time during the week. You don't go. You need to be on the injury report if you have a meniscus tear. All right. Teams are subject to fines if they're found to be playing with the injury report, not being honest with the injury report. Technically, the Falcons could still be fined for not having Mariota on the injury report. I would not be surprised if the NFL doesn't look into this. Now, remember, we've been talking for a while about the NFL being in bed with organized gambling. And I'm sure that sports books and places like FanDuel and other sites like that were kind of upset to hear if they heard that Mariota, that this was a chronic condition, because that goes into how they set the spread for a game. How big is the spread going to be? Well, they're going to double think a game if Mariota is hurt, if he has instability in the knee. But he never showed instability in the knee. The Falcons never said he had a knee injury. The word about the knee injury did not come up until Marcus had been benched. And again, the quote is, I gave everything I had for this team. I thought I was making a good decision for everybody. Ultimately, we decided that getting my knee fixed was in the best interest. However, Arthur Smith says he and Mariota never talked about the quarterback getting any type of knee procedure done when they discussed Mariota's benching. So, based on what I just told you about meniscus tears, what I researched about meniscus tears, I'm calling bullshit on Marcus Mariota. Jamal, he should have been benched long before that game. Good riddance. Yes, exactly. You are so right, Jamal. Should have been benched long before that game because of his play. And you're not going to convince me that his play was because of a knee injury, because that knee injury, again, never did show up on the injured report at any time during the season. So, Jamal also says, good luck, Eagles. I hope you all quarterback stays healthy. You better be right. Jalen Hurts better stay healthy. I am with you there, Jamal. But yeah, I said during the season, Desmond Ritter should have started week 11 against the Chicago Bears, because the Bears defense was having a hell of a time putting any pressure on the quarterback. The Bears defense was down last year. I think it would have been an ideal point for Desmond Ritter to get his first start as an NFL quarterback. And then the following week going against the Commanders. So I think to ease the jitters of Desmond Ritter going into a game, instead of going facing your top divisional rival in their building in week 15, they should have started him against the Saints. So, Jamal, absolute last straw? Yes. Yeah. No kidding. And that, the following week, that was the week before the Bears game, where Marcus threw that, potato or softball or whatever the hell you want to call it, from flat on his back, which was just one of the most hilarious things I've ever seen a quarterback try and do. You don't see high school quarterbacks trying to do that. Okay. And this was a NFL quarterback, a second overall pick, a Heisman Trophy winner. and just looked like a fool. Yep. After he lobbed that grenade from the seat of his pants. You're right. But again, I say because the following week was the Bears. And I think Desmond Ridder would have been more comfortable starting against the Bears defense. So it just made sense all around. The timing in the season and the fact that Mariota had hit rock bottom with that play against the Carolina Panthers. Wallace, that's another point. Now, there was no report that Mariota had issues with his knee. And yeah, we've covered that. He never said which knee he needed to have surgery on. That is telling, Wallace. That means a lot. So, maybe Arthur Smith felt pressure to give him more chances. I don't know. I don't think Arthur Smith felt pressured at all to give Mariota more chances. By that time, you knew Mariota was not going to be the quarterback of this team in 2023. He couldn't be. He showed that he had nothing to be quarterback for this team. But again, a meniscus injury, if it's a minor tear, you could play through it. It would not affect his free agency. Just a 4-week recovery time. You do have to walk. You do have to use crutches during that 4 weeks of healing time. Anybody ever recall seeing Marcus Mariota on a crutch? Yeah, I didn't. So again, never limped. Never showed that the meniscus was torn to the point where he said in the interview that it was torn because he would have had to have surgery during the season to have that fixed. And again, Wallace, great point. Never said what knee he had to have that surgery on. And Arthur Smith said we never had that conversation. He quit on the team. Even if he had the meniscus fixed, that doesn't mean he can't come back, sit in the quarterback room, and help Des Ridder. Okay, even if he did have to have that knee fixed. Let's go that far. Let's say he had to have the knee fixed. It doesn't matter. He can still go in the quarterback room. He can still help Desmond Ridder. He can go on the sidelines with the crutches and help Desmond Ridder with reading the field, telling him what he should be looking at. And Larry Orange, he passed his physical with the Eagles. Yeah, but as I say, that's not a problem with a meniscus. 4 weeks tops. But you have to be on crutches. And as I say, he could have did that after the season and still passed his physical with the Eagles. And Wallace, yeah, I'm with you. I believe with Arthur Smith. Again, I am calling bullshit on Marcus Mariota. Good riddance. Don't need him in Atlanta. This team doesn't need him. All right. All things considered, even with the knee injury, he could have been on the sideline for the last 4 weeks of the season. If he had gotten the knee fixed, he could have been on the sideline. If that were a true story. So it just doesn't work for me. And again, let's hope. I really hope that we're not talking about Marcus Mariota much longer after this. He's not worth it. All right. He quit on the Falcons. He quit on Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith tried to give him another chance to be a starter. He quit. Marcus Mariota will never start in the NFL again, or should never start in the NFL again. Does not have the skills. So Mariota's problems last year were in his decision making and his accuracy, and that had nothing to do with instability in the knee. Because if it did, the Falcons would have insisted on him getting it fixed during the season. They never insisted that it need to be fixed. So, Jamal, yes. Never see a starting job at the beginning of a season again. Might start during a season. As you said earlier, Jamal, Eagles fans better keep their fingers crossed for Jalen Hurts, because that they don't need to see Marcus Mariota on the field. If that's the case, then they got big problems. All right, I'm going to go into the Falcons on defense, basically comparing defenses in the NFC South. Let's look at where the Falcons are going into the season. We're getting really close to training camp. And I don't know about you, but I'm excited about it. We're about done with watching, reading stories about this player is the best target for these teams. The season for clickbait is just about over. And I had my say about clickbait last week. So let's look at defense as far as I said, last year, and what each team has done to address their weaknesses on defense. I do a lot of compiling of my own statistics that don't quite jive with, Wallace rookies report to training camp next week on the 18th, and I am ready for it. Last year, the Falcons, there's a statistic that I use that measures how an offense or how a defense prevents an offense from generating points. There's a reason why yards gained does not go up on the scoreboard. Yards gained makes no difference. It doesn't matter. What matters is the points. How many points did those yards gain? And the Falcons were actually pretty good at preventing points on defense last year. Their index, they had, let's see. All right, the Falcons allowed a point for every 15.9 yards of opposition yards gained. That comes out to 111.3 yards per 7 points. It took offenses 111.3 yards to score the equivalent of 7 points against the Falcons last season. Pretty damn good. That's where you want to be. Forcing a team to drive, as I say, it's a lot of times it's forcing a team to drive from deeper in their territory. You can give up yardage all day into your territory, but if you're only giving up a field goal or maybe stopping them on downs, that's all that matters. If you force an offense to drive 60 yards and they only come away with a field goal, well, they've used 20 yards of offense for each one of those points that they gathered. And it makes a big difference. As I say, this is why you see often where a team is outgained, where a team is maybe doesn't have the same yards that their opponent does, but they're ahead in the game because they've made better use of their yardage. They've gotten better opportunities. They've gotten the ball closer to midfield. They've picked up a turnover in Falcons territory, and they have fewer yards to drive. So what this says is that the Falcons made teams earn their points last year on defense, which is impressive. It's not bad. However, the rest of the NFC South kind of did that too. Everybody was fairly good at forcing teams to generate yardage on defense. New Orleans Saints gave up, let's see, New Orleans was 15.5 yards per point scored. Buccaneers, 15.4 yards per point scored. So, and the Falcons and Panthers, 15.9 yards per point scored. So very impressive as far as that goes. I expect the Falcons to be better this year with Ryan Nielsen as their defensive coordinator. I like Nielsen's concepts. I like the four-man front that he is envisioning for this team. I think it's going to be more effective with this personnel. I like the way the personnel fits this scheme. All right, where we drop down a little bit and where we start seeing the real problems with the Falcons defense. And I don't know, the rest of the division kind of did fairly good. Net passing yards per attempt, which is your yards per attempt, and you add the number of sacks to the attempts because sacks are a pass attempt. And you can't look at stats in a vacuum. You can't say, well, a sack doesn't count because the quarterback didn't throw the ball. Yeah, a sack counts as an attempt because the quarterback was trying to throw the ball and was prevented. And you add those sack yards. You take those sack yards away from completion yards. Again, because you had a net loss on the play. And you have to account for that. It's amazing how nobody accounts for the fact that bad things happen on the play, but it doesn't really count in the stats. Everybody's looking at completed yards, but they're looking at that without sack yards being subtracted from that. Because sack yards make a big difference. You're putting a defense behind the chains. You're making those second and third downs a lot longer. And one of the problems with the Falcons last year was in their secondary. Net passing yards per attempt, they gave up 6.5 net passing yards per attempt. All right. They were 29th in the NFL in net passing yards per attempt. But one of the positives we can take into account is that the Falcons have done quite a bit to try and fix that issue. Signing safety Jesse Bates, signing Mike Hughes. So the Falcons and them with A.J. Terrell, D. Alford, you still have a good presence of guys that were on the team. You've got some real help, guys coming in on secondary for the Falcons. So the Falcons have really, I would expect the Falcons are not going to be 29th in that statistic again. The New Orleans Saints were third. 4.9 yards per pass attempt. Incredible. That's an incredible number. That's third in the NFL. So, Brian Friedman's with us today. Go Dirty Birds. I'm with you, Brian. So let me call up something real quick here. Defensive passing yards per attempt. Smallest to largest. All right. The Eagles were first. 4.1 passing yards per attempt. Surprisingly, the Jets was second. 4.8 passing yards per attempt. Saints were ninth. Saints were third, 4.9 passing yards per attempt. Chiefs fourth, 5 passing yards per attempt. So the 2 Super Bowl teams were in the top 4. Jets and Saints both up there, but didn't take advantage of those yards they were preventing, didn't take advantage of that on offense. So it's not all defense, but again, the Jets and Saints did a great job of preventing yards through the air. And it's going to be a difficulty for Desmond Ridder in game 1 because New Orleans basically has the same secondary that they had last year. So it's going to be a good test for Desmond Ridder. No, not week 1. I'm sorry. Let's see. The Falcons who did they get in week 1? I'm sorry. And sometimes the mind doesn't want to work. They get the Panthers week 1. I knew it wasn't the. So the Panthers net passing yards per attempt, 5.9. 20th in the NFL. Now, the Panthers did sign Von Bell. So they have strengthened their defensive backfield, but that's basically it. Yeah, Wallace, I just looked that up myself because I couldn't remember. I knew it was a division team. I couldn't remember which one. So it is the Panthers. But not a bad team for Desmond Ridder to start the season against. Because as I say, 20th in net passing yards per attempt. Signed Von Bell, so they'll be a little bit better. But that's about all they did to address a real problem on their defense next year. From their defense from last year. By the way, Tampa Bay Bucks were 5th in the NFL, 5.1 passing yards per attempt. So Desmond Ridder is going to have some problems with a couple of teams as far as passing the ball in the NFC South. Now, the great part about that is the Saints allowed 4.5 rushing yards per attempt last year. And we all know I don't have to run down what we had, what Falcons have added to the running back room this year. We're going to go to a comment real quick. Brian Friedman, everybody's saying in fantasy that Algier is just Bijan's backup. I disagree. He is still going to have an integral role regardless. I agree with you, Brian. As a matter of fact, I don't know how many yards Algier's going to get. However, expect Algier to be in that backfield anytime within the 10-yard line because he's so tough to bring down. He gets so much yards after contact. I think he's going to be a real red zone weapon. He may not gain a lot of yards for you, but he might score a lot of points for you. So it's going to be interesting to see this offense in the first couple of weeks, how they work with Tyler Algier and Bijan Robinson. So let's see. So the Falcons do have a nice advantage against some of these teams running the football. What I want to go into next, though, is defensive passer rating. Because the Falcons, again, have a problem, again, with passer rating. And part of this has to do with their pass rush and their ability to put to bring a quarterback down, their sack percentage. Falcons were 29th in the league, allowed opposing quarterbacks a 95.7 passer rating. Now, the Buccaneers may have held teams down in net passing yards per attempt, but they were only 22nd in defensive passer rating, 92.7. So, in other words, teams were completing short stuff against the Buccaneers. You can beat the Buccaneers short because they were allowing completions, just not long completions. Panthers, 24th in the league, defensive passer rating 93.7. And again, just signed Von Bell to help that. Now they do have I expect them to have a stronger pass rush this year. That's going to make a difference in the passer rating that they allowed. But you're allowing a lot of completions. You're not sacking quarterbacks enough to make a difference. Passer rating differential. This is the difference between your offensive passer rating and what you give up on defense. All right, the Falcons were 25th. They gave up, gave up more defensive passer rating. There was 95.7. Their offensive passer rating was 87.7. So, -8 in passer rating differential. That's got to turn around. If you want to be a competitive team, let me, again, call up my statistics sheet here. No wonder I got that backwards. No wonder I wasn't looking at that. I went largest to smallest. Cincinnati Bengals, 20.9. They had a 20.9 difference between their offensive passer rating and defensive passer rating. San Francisco 49ers was second, Eagles third, Bills fourth, Seahawks fifth. Kansas City Chiefs were seventh. What do all those teams have in common? Made the playoffs. That tells you how important. 7 teams. Let's look at the top 10 in defensive passer rating differential. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 teams out of the top 10 in passer rating differential made the playoffs. The Falcons have to turn around their passer rating differential. Means they have to be better in the secondary. Means they have to be better on offense with Desmond Ridder. They have to make things happen with Bijan Robinson in the passing game. They do have Jonnu Smith in the passing game. That should help with this differential. But you can see how important it is because, your top teams are in the playoffs. And 2 of those were the Super Bowl teams. And it happens every year. So on defense, the Falcons really do have to do something to bring that passer rating down, that defensive passer rating down. I think they've taken action to do that. Now let's see what Ryan Nielsen does with the players that the Falcons have acquired. But it's a huge difference that, it says a lot about a team if they can prevent quarterbacks from, going to town on them through the air. It makes a big difference. So we're going to go into another stat that I particularly like. Defensive negative pass plays. Negative pass plays account for 2 types of plays. Sacks and interceptions. All right, a lot of people the last couple of years are looking at pressures as a negative pass play, are looking at knockdowns as a negative pass play. They have nothing to do with being a negative pass play. Remember, if a quarterback, you can get credited for a pressure, but remember, if you're getting credited for a pressure or you're getting credited even for a knockdown, the quarterback is still getting rid of the football. And the problem is, even if the quarterback just threw it out of bounds, they're getting rid of the football. You do not get that offense behind the chains. You do not get the 2nd and 15 or 3rd and 14, 15, 16. You're not getting those long passing downs that you can feast off of because you didn't get the sack. You didn't complete the play. And it makes a difference. Now, pressure, yeah, it might make a difference, might allow your defensive back to hide behind a receiver and jump the pass route. Happens occasionally. Doesn't happen as often as you might like to think. You have got to get the quarterback on the ground with the football. You have got to sack the quarterback. The Falcons were 31st in the NFL in creating negative pass plays. That's 31st negative pass plays per pass attempt. So every time a quarterback dropped back to pass, likely the Falcons weren't going to touch him. Also likely, Falcons weren't going to get the turnover. So, 5.33 is way too few. The Philadelphia Eagles, yes, Brian, sacks they are everything. Pressure means nothing. And I will keep pressing that home all year. So if you've heard me say it today, you're going to hear me saying it all year. The Philadelphia Eagles, 13.9% of negative pass plays per attempts. Best in the league. But we also knew that the Philadelphia Eagles had one of the best defensive lines. And I think led the league by about 20 in sacks. So just incredible. Cowboys did very well. They were second, 11.59. So you see the Chiefs you don't have to be the best at it, but you got to be in the top 10. Chiefs were 10th at 9.79. So the Chiefs did prevent, either by sack or by interception, did come up with the play they needed to come up with. Eagles were first. Chiefs were 10th. Those are your Super Bowl teams. Again, look at what these teams at the top of these statistics have in common. They made the playoffs. They made the Super Bowl. Brian, yes, I think the sacks will improve. I agree with you. Again, I think the Falcons really looked at their statistical rankings on defense and realized how tough that was going to be to compete on defense without making those signings like Bates, Mike Hughes, Bud Dupree, Onyemata, Lorenzo Carter, bringing him back. Bringing in Calais Campbell. Calais Campbell on 2nd and long, 3rd and long is going to be a weapon. He may not give you Pro Bowl numbers on every play, but I think he's going to be a great rotational defensive end. And he's somebody that teams are going to have to game plan for when it comes to 2nd and long and 3rd and long. Because I think that's where Calais Campbell is going to have that impact. So looking forward to seeing how the Falcons' negative pass play percentage improves over the course of this next year. Because I think it will. I agree with you, Brian. I think it will. Third down percentage. Saints were 24th, 41.6 success rate at giving up for at allowing teams to convert on third down. Falcons were 31st in allowing teams to succeed, in converting on third down. 45.9, almost half the time a team had a third down against the Falcons, they converted. So, you just can't be there. 31st, who was the worst? Let me look that up here on my sheet real quick. I got my Excel spreadsheet and I got my handy dandy sort. Let's see who I got. I will get to that in just a moment, Todd. I will answer that. Yeah, third down in any distance was bad. It has to be. If you're giving up 30% on third downs, you're just, let's see, smallest to largest. All right, again, you don't have to be in the top of the league to make the playoffs on this, in this stat. However, why didn't it give me a sort here? Oh, guess what? The Bears were worse than the Falcons last year in allowing third down conversions. That tells you a lot. You saw where the Bears ended up with the first overall pick in the draft, which they ended up trading to Carolina. But again, if you're bad, if you can't get off the field on third downs, forget it. And that's considering that, as I said, yardage per point scored, the Falcons were actually pretty good. 103.6. 15.9 points per yards gained, per opponent's yards gained. So 111.3 yards for opponents to score the equivalent on 7 points on the Falcons. So the Falcons were giving up a lot of third downs. They weren't giving up a lot of points because of it. So that makes a huge difference. Again, it comes down to points. How many points are you giving up per these plays? So overall, I had the Atlanta Falcons ranked 30th as far as their defensive front. This doesn't include the secondary. Buccaneers ranked 14th. Panthers ranked 26th. Saints ranked 20th. On defense, ranking their front sevens. Now, as far as Todd, do you think Coach Smith can take us to playoffs? CBS Sports says he ranks like near last as coaches. Yeah, I saw that, Todd. I was a little shocked to see that, actually, because, let's see. Got that backwards again. Largest to smallest. I had Arthur Smith ranked 7th among head coaches last year, as far as my rankings. So, yes, I do think Arthur Smith can take this team to the playoffs. I think he has what it takes. I think they're going to have a better offense this year. I think Arthur Smith is getting the first chance he's had in 3 seasons. I think CBS Sports is looking at record. But what they're not looking at is this is the first season that Arthur Smith is actually going to get a chance to run his offense. To run the offense he has envisioned in his mind. The one he's been wanting to do since he got to Atlanta. That he couldn't do with Matt Ryan, that he couldn't do with Marcus Mariota, and the record of dead cap space last year. So, Todd, I think he gets another year, depending on how things go. But I think he and Terry Fontenot get another year. They get a second year of basically building their team. This is the first season that they've had where they've been able to build their team. And that does make a difference. Scheme makes a lot of difference, and Smith did not have the players for his scheme. And you can't, it's tough to win that way. It's tough to adapt your scheme to your players or players to the scheme. So, but as I say, I had Arthur Smith ranked 7 among NFL coaches last year. I think he's a quality coach. And I think you're going to see a lot more out of the Falcons this year because he's got players that he wants in offense. He's got a better offensive line. He's got Chris Lindstrom, who's an all-pro. This guy is going to be great for a long time. He's going to anchor that offensive line for a long time. So, yeah, I think we're going to see everything out of Smith. We're going to see more out of this playbook this coming year than we've seen in the past couple of years. I think we're going to see improved defense out of this team based on their free agent signings than we've had the last 2 years. Again, because of that record cap space, you can't do anything with it. But the Falcons have made some moves. And I think it gets better. I think that third down percentage gets better. I think that rushing yards per attempt gets better. Third down percentage gets better. Net passing yards per attempt gets better. Passer rating differential gets better. I see it all getting better for the Falcons this year. And I don't see as many pluses around the rest of the division. I think, there's going to be improvements in the rest of the division, but the Falcons are the only team I've seen that on defense directly addressed a lot of their weaknesses. I think their pass rush, I'm not sold on their pass rush yet. Yeah, Brian, out of cap jail, that changes everything. You are right. So, and that's the problem. When you're out of cap jail, and the Falcons took advantage of it. So I think there's going to be some improvement in these important defensive numbers going into next season. And I'm looking forward to seeing it. So I think they rank well. The whole division, as I just recounted, was ranked low, pretty low this year in 2022. And I think compared to their 3 rivals, I think they're ready. I think they should. They're going to be they're going to be improved compared to the rest of the division on defense this year. I wouldn't be surprised to see the Falcons, break out of this bottom third that they're in across all of my important statistical categories. Oh, man. Todd, yeah, I think there will be big plays for Ritter downfield. Drake London is going to be a big asset. You have Kyle Pitts coming back, who's going to be your downfield tight end. Sign Matt Hollins. I like Matt Hollins. I like what the Falcons have done. Defensive line, I'm not really sold on yet. Maybe we'll go more into the defensive line. There's Chris. We'll go into the defensive line a little bit more next year, next week. I mean, and we'll look at some of the offensive numbers and where we can see some improvement on offense and where the rest of the division sits on offense next year, according to my statistical analysis that I do week to week every season. So we are out of time. We have had our hour together on Saturday. I have loved it. I love the interaction. Great comments today. I am very grateful for all of you spending Saturday with me for an hour talking football. A lot of fun. I enjoy the hell out of doing this. So I hope you enjoyed the show, and I look forward to talking to you again next Saturday. Have a great week, everyone.